Welcome, everybody. I'm really excited I get to start with you today. I'm going to share my screen. And as I do, I really want to understand a little bit about where you're at today. I know we have a very condensed amount of time and you've got a really large agenda ahead of you. But I really encourage you to think about this and how it relates to your goals. And so I'd love you to drop into the chat your goal for 2021 as it relates to maybe understanding your business better. With intro to reporting, I think one of the most important aspects of what I want to do is, since many of you are either novice or expert level or somewhere in between, I want to make sure that I'm able to provide you what you're looking for with regards to getting something out of this session. It may seem at times that with intro to reporting, it can be very much so rudimentary feeling, and I want to connect that to your goals. So I want to literally take your interest level in your business, knowing that it's been a year, right? It's been quite a year. And then connect that to why I think it's super important to use data to help drive your decisions, and also where you can find that data in the most simplistic form and how you can kind of aggregate the data that you're likely desiring now and as you look ahead for the future. So I'm going to give you a quick moment just to drop that goal into your chat box for me. As I do, just let me know that you're seeing my screen and it's full for you as well. If someone can just let me know.
You're all good.
Cool. So as your goals are coming in, the most important aspect of using your Mindbody data is because it's so incredibly powerful. So as someone who works with businesses at all stages of their life cycle, including the beginning, but I tend to focus on taking great businesses and helping them to become even better, which is likely at least one of your goals for 2021. When I think about the power that you have in your fingertips, with regards to the data that's within your Mindbody software at any level. There's a couple of things I think that it's important to refresh on. One is just understanding what reports are available to you. And there'll be some great breakdowns of this throughout the day. But certainly I want to give you an idea of like my quick hits where I always go to evaluate a business, whether I'm looking to purchase and acquire, which I've done many times, or grow and flourish. And then learning to tag. Learning to tag is one of those things I think a lot of experts will tell you is a key to understanding how to use the data you have instead of figuring out the data that you don't have. And so I see a word that's popping out to me right now, which is underutilizing. And the last thing that I think anyone wants you to do with your data is to overpay and underutilize for it. So tagging can be a really important element to kind of drilling down into your data a little bit more. Clean data is one of those things that if you've had your business for some time, there's almost always an area of data cleanup, whether it's making sure that you understand what the data is telling you, what changes you've made. I mean, it's been a year of some changes. And I can see that, when you went from likely in person to some sort of virtual to some sort of hybrid, your data is not exactly perfect at this point, even a year later. And so this is probably a great time for you to kind of reevaluate that as well. And then gaining insight. This is the thing about navigating the world that we're in today. I would be remiss if I didn't tell you that I totally understand that a piece of this year, a piece of this life that we're all living in together feels a little blind still, right? We're still not perfectly understanding what our new normal is now and what it will look like. And so this is where I say there's two kind of really important aspects of data that are very powerful. The first you're probably most familiar with, and that's the qualitative data. That's how you feel. That's what your gut tells you. That's when you're at the front desk potentially and you're seeing where people come in and what questions they have, or you're running the virtual classes and you see the upsides of that. You also see some of the pitfalls of that. So that qualitative data is incredibly important, and I won't discount it, but I will tell you that my focus today is to help you with your quantitative data, and that's the tangible data that's in the back end of your Mindbody. Some of the most powerful aspects of data, especially now, is going to be looking at a year-over-year comparison. Three of the most important KPIs of your business are sales, attendance and revenue and retention, right? Especially in the last year, because a lot of what I think our industry has done has worked aggressively to attain and retain the clients they had, let's call it pre-COVID. And now, in addition to that, the question I think that's on everyone's minds is, how do I grow now with new clients? Like, how will that work with this new entry point of offerings that I have? And maybe I went from a one focus business to having multiple focuses. The other thing is, and this is where it gets kind of sticky, is looking at the seasonality of our business. Many of my clients didn't see the same January surge that they did in years prior, right? And so understanding that our seasons are now a bit more fluid and that it will continue to ebb and flow, but it definitely helps you to know, okay, what was last month, right? What was the month this time last year, so that you can better understand the future. And then, of course, the effects of what this lockdown, COVID, virtual world has on your business. I'm kind of really drilling into the importance of your data now, so that you can see it's worth the effort for you to really get to know what's powerful and capable of what you have in your back end of your system. And so that way, you're not focused on feelings or what your gut tells you, or even your limited experience, but instead you actually have something very clear cut, as objective as possible, that can help you really make the best decisions for your business moving forward. So if you're comfortable, you're welcome to log into your Mindbody and maybe look at some of these things in real time. I'm certainly going to take a moment to do that later on. But I want to go through the basics. I mean, this is going to seem very much so the rudimentary aspects of using your Mindbody software system. But I think there's sometimes something to be said for going back to basics so we can look forward. And I see a lot of your goals are actually set up around taking advantage of your reports, of tracking some of the efforts of what you've done. And I want to say that it's not too late to clean up your data and to better understand the back end of your system. So this is where, the basic elements of this is getting to know the data in your Mindbody system. So going to the reports tab is a simple place to find what's available to you, depending on your software system, depending on which option you have. You're going to have a litany of things that are related to sales, clients, membership. And I always recommend that if you haven't already, starring some of those reports that you're going to do more frequently, that you're going to use on a regular basis, just makes it easier to find. And also using the basic search function. I consider it like a Google search for your Mindbody system and for the reports. It can really help to just cut down the time that you may be spending, getting to know what your software system has available. The other aspect of this is really straightforward, right? A lot of times when you're looking at data to evaluate a business, whether it's prospective or retrospective, you want to look at date ranges. I think the most common date ranges are what can be used by the quick dates function. Those buttons are your best friend. It's going to help you to understand very quickly what date ranges you need to pull. Some best practices here is often to look at the month prior, where you've got a full month of data, and then to look to the month, same month in the year prior. That gives you an idea of, okay, where were we at most recently, but also what was going on this time last year, which is a very transitionary time, and I totally acknowledge that. But dates are important because it gives you an idea of a starting and stopping point. And for those of you understanding that many of you are in the fitness and yoga industries, that monthly recurring revenue is usually a big part of what you offer, including something like an intro offer, which is usually consumed within a month. So I think a month is a really great place for you to spend a lot of time when you think about dates in reporting. Let's talk a little bit about filters. There's sometimes almost so much information in the filters that you kind of stick with the ones or you don't realize what's available to you. Certainly, if you have multiple locations, I'm a big believer in looking at each location separately and then an aggregate of all the locations together. Reasons for that are simple. Every location, whether in the same city or in different parts of a city or in different states, it's extremely important to understand that the nuances of their data is going to be very different. both from the data collection, right? How are the client's information input, and is that standard? But most importantly, I think every local market has its own flair with regards to what works for them. I'll give you an example. If you have a studio on one side of town and a studio on the other side of town, you're not going to have perfect first visit numbers, right? One studio may have a lot more new clients coming in, but the other studio may be more tenured with regards to existing recurring revenue. So I use filters as a way to better understand the data, to drill down, and then also look at it from a broad perspective. So that's a simple one. A lot of things we overlook, and this is where data cleanup can be really pivotal. So since I know I'm speaking to some folks who are mostly in the middle, not entirely novice and not entirely expert, boy, I really recommend you go in and make some changes to your revenue categories. This is one of the areas I think even my most tenured clients that have been on the platform for a long time tend to have either not set up accurately to begin with, or are finding that it's getting a little sticky with regards to having a hybrid business or multiple offerings that maybe they didn't have before. The great news about this is it's really simple to do, and cleaning up your data here can help you to run even more efficient reports, because now you can filter by each revenue category. Let me give you a quick example of what that would look like. I think this is really powerful. If you're running a yoga and Pilates business, for instance, you may be tempted to have a revenue category that's just like yoga and Pilates classes, but without breaking down the different aspects of that revenue. So packages versus memberships versus drop-ins and short-time commitments. It's not going to give you the depth of the knowledge that you want, and it's much more difficult to then start what we'll talk about in a moment, which is tagging and reevaluating how to understand the data better. Let me say this again, it is never too late for you to make these changes. One nuance that you'll want to consider if you've not done this before is that your past data won't entirely update, but your future data will be there for the taking. And so it's real easy to focus on the fact that you won't have this breakdown, let's say for the last 3 years of your business, but boy, you'll have it for the future. The other thing I always recommend, there are great reports for looking at autopay, but there's also amazing filters in a lot of the reports that you're looking at to make sure you're looking at your target client very differently, whether they're an autopay client or a single use client. So a lot of times, let's say I'm running a sales by service report, one of my favorite reports to do. I may look at different filters to understand the revenue category and whether or not I want to look at autopays now, or if I want to look at that as a completely separate report. So summary versus detail is unique. I actually really believe that making this decision earlier on in your business was probably already established. Just quickly to give you an idea, for me in the day-to-day, a lot of times summary is more than enough. It's enough to get a quick hit and to understand, for instance, if I'm going to run that sales by service report, it's going to give me for the month, for instance, the entire number versus each individual transaction. Now, sometimes that detail report with the individual transaction can be really helpful because you may want to know the volume of data that you're getting in, meaning you may want to know, okay, each day my average daily revenue is blank. So these are the days that I want to consider for days that we're open in person, days that we're willing to put a little more man hours to the phones because a lot of transactions are going on. So understanding the nuances of your business can sometimes really fuel a data-driven report that's also detail-oriented, and on an ongoing basis, the summary is usually super helpful. If you're not already working with someone who gives you a lot of financial insight, I really recommend, again, it's a great time to kind of reset every aspect of the business and look at whether or not a cash or accrual-based accounting method is better for you. One of which is going to count the money as you receive it, and the other is going to count future monies as if you've already received it. Everyone has a different idea of what works best for their business. And I really believe that I've worked with businesses that are cash-based, that it makes a lot of sense for them and they're consistent with that. And then I've worked with businesses that are accrual-based and that works for them. Just important to know that when you're setting up your reports, that you're choosing the category that makes most sense for how you've structured the business. Okay, so generate is always like kind of the last step, but I think it's often overlooked how much more you can do versus just clicking a button and seeing what is available to you on screen. One of my absolute favorite things to do is to export to Excel. If you don't love Excel, you will find yourself, even not loving Excel, wanting the data to be manipulated in a way that sometimes the software doesn't do perfectly, whereas exporting to Excel can give you so much more flexibility and filtering really simply with something called an auto filter. So that's my hot tip there. I like to export a lot of the reports to Excel, hit an auto filter, and then I can really customize how I see the data a little bit deeper and a little bit more intuitively. Okay, tagging is this area that you may have remembered from previous MBUs or spent time learning, and I just want to take a little time to explain how to use it and what it is. Now, the best benefit of tagging is taking an aggregate. I'll give you an example. If you're looking to get a sales report that's specifically from a type of client, for instance, people who are not on a membership, you'll need to run a report first to figure out who are the clients that are not on a membership, and then put that into the sales report. Simple to do with the power of a tag. One of the easiest ways to understand which tag is most appropriate for which thing is when you look at the color code here, right? Under tag new is typically where most of us start, and it's actually the one we use most commonly. So when I want to take, let's say, that same client prototype, someone who is a group of people who've been in before but are not members, I'm going to tag everyone in that report as new. Then I'm going to go to the sales report as an example, and I'm going to literally fill out the date as I would like. I'm going to click this little box here that says show tagged clients only. So it's telling me I want to see the sales from people who are not clients who are on an auto pay. And then from there, I can better understand the data that's in front of me. So that's one example. There are times that you're going to piece together different types of data. Roll with me here. Here's an example of that. So maybe at first you want to take all clients that are on auto pay from one of your locations, okay? But then you want to get an idea of the entire health of the business with regards to auto pay. So as you tag new location one's auto pay clients, you also want to tag add location twos so that you get a better understanding of the two locations together. So that's the major difference between tag new and tag add. A couple things to note here. When you're tagging clients, it is unique to your Mindbody login. That's always pretty interesting to figure out if you're sharing a login with a manager or a member of your team, which means that tag client will actually stay in your system even when you log out. So anytime you need to clear your clients that are tagged, great option here is to click on untag clients. It sounds a lot more challenging than it is once you're in the software system, so I'd love to take a moment if we have time to do that with you. Okay, so let's talk about the tag new a little bit deeper and what that makes sense for. Tag new disregards any other clients that were in that category that you were using before. So tag new is literally like, bring me everyone that I just ran this report for, regardless of what was there. It clears out the prior tag. It does not tag clients who are new to your business, although I would love that as a feature request. In fact, the report for that I love is the first visit report. It's really the clients that are coming in for the first time. I call them that little green star. Okay, so untag then should make more sense, where it takes clients from your tagged list, but it does not reflect whether or not they're new to the business. I'm hoping that makes sense for you. The tagged client only section that I mentioned before, I want to show you now what this looks like, is a key part of filtering, because it's sometimes the most important thing that you want to drill down to is, okay, I have this aggregate of clients that I'm working within, and I want to make sure that I only run this report for clients that are part of this aggregate. And that's what you're going to do when you click that little box. The great news about this is that it's really easy to look at both tag clients and clients that are not part of the tag pretty succinctly, so that you're able to better understand what you're looking at. So whether it's that, okay, everyone who's on an auto pay, and then look at everyone who's not and make some decisions about your data there. So I'm keeping this super general for now. So then let's talk about like really important places to tag. I'm going to jump around a little bit here just for the sake of time to tell you the ones that I think are most important, but each and every one of these is pivotal. The sales report is really important, especially if you don't necessarily have your revenue category set up correctly. So I would say one of the most important aspects of figuring out where you want to start tagging first, sales reports. Your mailing list report is a huge one now as you're figuring out how to communicate with clients and where to communicate with clients. So a lot of times we're tagging clients from, let's say, my first visit report is my favorite report ever. I think it's just like the most important thing for your business. So let's say we take all of our new clients from last month in a first visit report, and I may want to send out a targeted communication to them. And so oftentimes if I'm using email platform that's not integrated with my Mindbody very well, I'm going to take that tag, I'm going to go into the mailing list report, and I'm going to drop all of those clients there. So I have all of their data lined up, name, first class that they took, instructor of that class, and then of course their contact information. This is also great for follow-up, right? It's great for sales reporting. It's also extremely important for having a process to welcome clients and bring them back to your studio. It's more important than ever because we're working in this hybrid format. And so the live stream classes report, video on demand viewership report are really like the key, most important aspects of where you want to use your data with regards to tagging. And that way you're reaching the right client with the right communication or the right sale at the right time. And I think as you look at growing, that's going to become even more important because of your need for new clients. I think the number one need I hear right now in the boutique industries, and particularly the ones that many of you are in, is that new clients are needed now. Right? It's great to be retaining the clients that you have, but your next step is to truly grow in a way that makes sense. So home stretch here, I want to touch again on ensuring that your data is super duper clean. I've talked to you about revenue categories, which is directly related to how you set up your pricing options, but don't be afraid to go back and look at your naming conventions. This is one thing I think at the beginning of this transition in your business may have just made sense to put like whatever made sense at the time, virtual, online, live. And now I really look at being very descriptive with your class names, both for the client to be able to understand what they're signing up for, and also I think for you to be able to run reports a lot faster and understand what's included and what's not. So I really recommend that this is a time to really value some consistency in your naming conventions, in your pricing options, and don't be afraid to rearrange. This really is the time to do that. I think one of the areas that keeps new clients from moving forward right now more than ever before is a lack of clarity and consistency in your schedule. Let me tell you what this is not. It does not mean it's consistency from the mindset of like all the classes have to be offered on the same day and time each week. So like every Monday, Friday, has to have the same schedule, and every Tuesday, Thursday has to have the same schedule. But instead, I think if we communicate very consistently and clearly for the client with regards to what does the class entail, where is the format being held, right? Virtual versus in person versus on demand. I think that is one of the most important aspects of having the client experience you from a very clear perspective from day one. Apathy is the number one thing we're fighting against right now in our industry. Apathy can be basically described as doing nothing. So the simpler that we can make this, the better. So this is the other area that I've been kind of building up to. And my big ask of you today, if I see one area that I would love you to focus on in changing, cleaning up, and improving your data as you go through the different KPIs today, is to really focus on how you set up your service categories and pricing. If you're not seeing certain aspects of the reporting, it may be that you're on different software tiers. It may be that you don't have the right permissions. And I think that is an area that I want you to leverage the team for. There's a great support article that you should have access to. And that's going to help you to figure out, okay, do I have everything I need to pull the data that I want to make the decisions that I desire? And that way you're able to be planning for the success that you want. A couple of things I like to just make sure that you're aware of. There are some reports that everyone has access to that I think are extremely important. First is payroll, and actually it's something that more tenured businesses tend to not have used as effectively through this transition. And I really recommend you leverage your software, like go back in there and re-adopt into whatever software service you have in Mindbody, and that includes with payroll. Sales by service is a great way to break down what's working for your business and to look at specifically what am I offering and what's selling more, what are clients actually taking advantage of. You may find you have too many offerings for each service category. You may find that packages aren't really retaining clients, although they're selling up front, but you're not really getting them back in after they buy the package. And then looking at your schedule and attendance analysis is pivotal right now to make sure you're not offering too many classes, too little times, and then also kind of leveraging the power of your instructors without overpaying, since I know that payroll is such a high aspect of what you all pay for to run your business, sometimes now more than ever before. So my top hits with regards to how I would interpret your data moving forward, okay? This is my last kind of big ask of you, is to think about the goal that you either dropped into the chat or that you're considering for your business and run each of these reports. I recommend as a starting point, quarterly, and then when you get comfortable, monthly, particularly the first visit report, the sales by service report, and the live stream classes report. Those are for sure things that you're going to want to know on a monthly basis as you make some decisions on the growth of your business, especially now and in the future. There's some real cool things that you may not have used with your software at the time that you've adopted it or upgraded. And I just want to quickly close with giving you an idea of some of the benefits of that. Automation is my favorite word. And I think the reason I enjoy it as a studio owner, as well as a coach and a consultant, is that it can really streamline some of the most important aspects of your business, whether that's email campaigns and ways to outreach to clients. This is really where you can be most served as consistently as possible to your clients with as less payroll leverage as possible, meaning that you need less people to get the job done. Of course, you've got access to a really great spreadsheet that is more of the rudimentary aspects of KPIs, but I love that most of these reports can be very turnkey for you and to better help you understand the key performance indicators of the business. I think of KPIs as keep profit improving. These are the metrics that are going to help you to measure the business, analyze the business, and really understand some key questions. How's the business doing? Is your attendance growing? That's pretty important right now. And is your revenue kind of doing what you need it to do to be sustainable and to get back to basics eventually and get back to business? And then the most important from my perspective, as a marketer and as someone who focuses on growing businesses, is are you bringing in more new clients? I think that's more important than ever before. So we ran through a lot in a short period of time, but I'll be in the Mindbody 1 area answering more of your questions and making sure that this kind of is the beginning steps of understanding the importance of your data as you go through each KPI a little bit more in depth. It's been great to be here with you.